I'ma give it to you with no trivia. Roll like cocaine straight from Bolivia. My hip hop will rock.
You're on the Spectrum, the political spectrum podcast of me, your host, Tobias Nash, and today me and the market socialist are talking about, I don't know, should I call you Anton? Or
yeah, you can call me Anton.
All right, so we're talking about the state of New Zealand politics. So my most recent guest, the last one, was Richard Woolgar, and he had a lot of interesting stuff to talk about. So I was thinking maybe we could talk about, just the state of play in New Zealand politics, and maybe just start off with like a little bit of a response to the stuff that he had to say.
So, in response to Richard, I guess the first thing that I wanted to sort of cover was sort of a claim that he made that New Zealand was a relatively socialist country. Yeah. And I guess I would push back on that, because realistically, if we look at other OECD countries, the vast majority of them spend more on public services. They have higher tax rates. They spend more on infrastructure. And they also have like a lot of socialist-leaning measures, right? If you look at Canada, or if you look at Australia, that we don't have. For example, Canada have entirely free public healthcare. Yeah. We have, in contrast, a sort of mixed public-private system where you still have to pay for doctor's visits and stuff. They're heavily subsidised, but you look at Canada, they're free. You have a public health card that, as long as you fit the needs criteria, then you get free healthcare, regardless of what it is, unless you go through the private system. Australia, on the other hand, has a compulsory national insurance program for all employees, which every employer has to pay into. It runs at a lot higher contribution rates than our KiwiSaver scheme, which is a lot newer and isn't mandatory. Although they are talking about making it so now. And
also the Australian one is pre-tax, right? Whereas the rest are taxed on our
it is. The Australian National Insurance Program is pre-tax. We are taxed on our KiwiSaver contributions. The other thing that strikes me is that the vast majority of OECD countries, and this includes the US and Singapore, who I would consider, other than Switzerland, the only OECD countries that would be considerably less socialist than we are. We don't actually have any antitrust laws.
Right. Yeah.
We do not have an antitrust law package. We don't have a capital gains tax, although Labour are talking about bringing one in. We sort of have a conditional one under the Bright Line test, right, when it comes to houses being sold under a certain period of time. I think that was 10 years under the last Labour government. I think Nationals moved it back to 2 years. So that's like sort of a mini capital gains tax, but all you really have to do is sit on your house for 2 years, right, and then you sell it, and then you don't have to pay the capital gains.
Pretty much.
Every other OECD country has a capital gains tax. In fact, I'm not aware of any other than New Zealand that don't have one, especially when it comes to selling houses. So I feel like we put our eggs in very, very few economic baskets. One of the main ones has been the housing market, and I think one of the main drivers of that is we have things like no capital gains tax. It's a very friendly market for investors, particularly ones who are quite risk averse when it comes to investing in productive sectors. Housing is a much safer asset, or is perceived as a much safer asset than productive industry, because productive industry obviously involves a lot of risk. You don't necessarily know if the product that you're investing in is going to work out, all of that sort of stuff. Sure, when it works, it's usually higher profit margins than property, but realistically, when you have an overinflated property market like we do and like we have for the last 20 years, there's no incentive for people with a lot of money to go and to not go into property. In terms of socialism, I would say that when you're talking about, like, even if you're talking about France, Canada, Australia, or even the Scandinavian so-called social democracies, who are vastly more socialist than we are, I would say. We're talking about that in a framework of neoliberal capitalism, right? Which is a form of capitalism where the cornerstone of that ideology is get the state out of the economy. Right? That doesn't sound very socialist to me. So I feel like when we're talking about socialism in capitalist countries, we're talking about varying degrees of socialist-leaning policy within the framework of neoliberal capitalism, which the overarching goal of is to damp down as much socialism as it possibly can, right? So I feel like when someone claims that an OECD country that is following neoliberal ideology is socialist, I don't want to question if they don't know what they're talking about, but it seems to be to me that they perhaps should be a little more specific about what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Rather than saying, oh, well, we're a socialist country because we have public services. I mean, our public services have been eroding for the last 40 years, right?
Yeah.
So obviously we were more socialist 40 years ago.
That's right. Yeah, I guess it's a question of degree. Like, I think he's probably using the term kind of loosely. And his main point there, right, was in response to people who complain about socialism and just use the term, as he put it, as a slur to demonize people that they politically disagree with. And so then his point was, every country pretty much is a mixed economy. And New Zealand, according to him, was quite socialist. But it's interesting, when you put it on a spectrum, it's probably one of the least socialist out of the OECD, especially over the last 40 years. That's been eroding. I think that's been happening a lot in most of the most developed countries. I'm surprised that you didn't put us further to didn't put the United States further to the right than us in terms of, because they don't even have any public.
If I didn't, then I misspoke.
Oh, right. So
I would say that we're probably, if I put all of the OECD countries on a spectrum from left, leftist, or like the most left wing to the most right wing, we're probably fourth or fifth most right wing.
Yeah. Behind
the United States, Singapore accepting its whole housing model.
Yeah.
Everything else they do is right wing. Maybe Japan and Switzerland.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everyone else is to the left of us.
Yeah, definitely economically there. I wonder, there are some things
that is what I'm talking about, is economically.
Yeah, of course.
We're talking about
because if we're talking about socialism,
here, right?
it's an economic, it's a system of economic organisation rather than just a political ideology, and people get that mixed up.
We're not talking about the culture wars.
No, preferably not.
At this point.
As little as possible if we can avoid it. But the other thing that you were going to talk about as a response to stuff that Richard said. One thing that he said was that the New Zealand economy is almost like a housing market with like a country attached, almost like the rest of the economy.
Largely agree with that.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that description. I would say that that's basically the case.
Yeah. The other main point that he made that you were talking about responding to was the one about progress, right?
Progress.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, this may just be that I'm a pessimist, but when I see people talking about progress and they're going, oh well, I think the phrase that he uses, for every step backward we take 2 steps forward.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that's true. If you look at things like the Treaty of Waitangi, okay, since the 80s, governments have gotten a bit more friendly to the idea of quote-unquote honouring the treaty. So let's have a look at what that looks like in the government's eyes. That looks like things like the Foreshore and Seabed Act. It looks like the Marine Area Coastal... The
Foreshore Seabed.
Yeah, Foreshore and Seabed Act. And there's MACA, which is the Marine and Coastal Reserve Act.
Oh, yeah.
And realistically, they have been attempts at compromises between an angry, predominantly, Euro population, who don't understand the issue of the treaty.
Yeah.
And so a compromise between those people and Māori.
Yeah.
That the government has tried to achieve 3 times now with the Foreshore and Seabed Act, then MACA in its first iteration, and now in its second iteration under this government.
Yeah.
And all that has done is make it harder for Māori to access land that they already had customary rights to. It hasn't actually made anything easier for Māori. It hasn't really given them any more rights to their land.
Yeah.
They've all been pretty rubbish compromises, frankly.
Yeah.
And we haven't taken any real step toward co-governance. Labour arguably tried, but even if you read what their idea of co-governance was, what it was realistically a slightly extended version of what councils do now, where they make a decision that affects iwi and then they have to go to the iwi and consult.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what it was. It was a consulting process. That's not co-governance. You're not giving these people any real power. But because they called it co-governance, all of the right-wingers got up in arms and went, oh my God, we're so scared. They're giving all the Bloody Marys all this power.
Yeah.
It's like, if you actually read what they're saying they're going to do, they're giving them basically nothing except a glorified consulting role.
Yeah. Even that,
And we're supposed to call that progress?
Yeah.
It seems to me almost like they set it up that way to be like, oh, now we've given its opponents something to shoot it down with. But we can say we tried.
I think with that kind of stuff, it seems like there's always this kind of backlash and this sort of embittered intensification of the opposition to racial equality or progressive policy when it comes to ethnic minorities and historically disadvantaged groups and stuff. Like Barack Obama becoming president seems to have produced like a huge wave of white anxiety in response.
Was it the Muslim from Kenya?
You're right, yeah. and I think like as society seems to move in one direction, the way that I think about it often is it's almost like if you're boiling off like a toxin or something, as the water evaporates, the actual toxic concentration seems to increase, and so it's like as soon as people move away from this position, the minority who are left seem to get more and more threatened. And I guess that's just, I mean, it's probably nothing revelatory really. That's the whole point of the term reactionary, right? There's always a reactionary tendency to progress. So it does seem like even when things do head in the right direction, you see this reactionary tendency where people, get way more intense in opposition to it than they would when they were threatened. And it's also, I guess that's the same thing about people say that fascism and racism are kind of like the antibodies of capitalism. Like when capitalism and the mandate of heaven or the deal that we're going to have continuing economic progress, when that's threatened, when it's undermined and people don't see continuing prosperity or an increase in their prosperity as guaranteed, then they start getting upset about stuff, and it seems like that often gets redirected into like racial tension and stuff in opposition to progressive things.
That does seem to be the case. I mean, the defensive tactic of the ownership class seems to be, okay, people are mad. They don't seem to know quite yet why they're mad. So before they figure out that they're mad because we've been robbing them for the last 40 years, non-stop, let's give them something else to focus on. Which, now, like, I understand better than I think most leftists would. The issues that right-wingers have around immigration, particularly immigration by low-skilled workers in high numbers, because, there are these jobs like fruit picking that New Zealanders don't want to do. Pay more. But, so, like, I understand those gripes. I have gripes with that. I have gripes with the idea of mass immigration causing downward pressure on wages. On the other hand, that is not an excuse to, engage in rhetoric that's like, these people coming from other cultures, they're going to harm us. Or like, what was the Trump line? They're eating pets. They're eating pets, right? They're eating cats and dogs. And you see some of the same kind of rhetoric from people like Shane Jones and Winston Peters. And it should make anyone a little sad, to be honest. But it's a shame that legitimate concerns about perhaps too much low-skilled immigration that does genuinely drive downward pressure on wages seems to be the refrain of the right. Like all of the concerns about immigration. And so because the right are so, I don't want to use the word odious because I'm trying to be a little less biased than I usually might be.
Right, yeah. Wasn't it like embittered or something?
But they seem like
passionate.
Embittered.
Yeah.
Right? And they're super passionate about it and along what I would consider the wrong lines. And so anytime you talk about immigration anytime I talk to another leftist about immigration, right? Almost every time they're like, oh, you must be a national voter, or they assume that I'm right wing. They just, you're a racist. And it's like, well, hang on. I'm not really sure how it's racist to not be that keen on 8,000 to 9,000 workers from, the Cook Islands and Fiji coming here to work on our orchards and our vegetable farms, when what we could actually do is say to the people who own the orchards and the vegetable farms is actually, you just have to pay a bit more, and then maybe people will come and do the job from your own country. Right? So there's plenty of legitimate reasons to bring in migrants, covering jobs that quote unquote people won't want to do is not one of them in any legitimate way, as far as I'm concerned, because all you're doing is driving downward pressure on wages.
I think that woke left kind of mode of discourse dominates because it doesn't threaten the accumulation of capital. It's like part of it is like there's the intensification of the culture wars stuff it's like a divide and conquer thing, and it's like the permitted mode of resistance. It's like the false controlled opposition or something. Like, let's focus on having more black, lesbian, trans women in the boardroom instead of, you know, decreasing the pay gap between the boardroom and the people that they pay, you know, the people that they employ. So it's like, it seems to be on both sides of the political spectrum that identity culture, identity politics, it replaces class consciousness. And so, you know, the right focus on it as a cudgel, as a divide and conquer thing, and then the left focus on it as well, because they're actually just a subset of capitalism, you know, it's like social democrats rather than democratic socialists. You know, there's that line, and if you're a social democrat, you're still a capitalist. You're still within the framework of capitalism, and so you will still probably defend the accumulation of capital. So I think that's pretty much it for the points that Richard brought up. Like, I think he would probably agree with us on most of that stuff. I think he was probably just using sort of some of that stuff in like a popular sense. But the other stuff that I wanted to talk about was just the general state of New Zealand politics from sort of now, like looking forward, like 2026 onwards. We got the election next year. We had, as Rich was talking about it, he was saying that Hodor, what's his actual name? Chris Bishop was going to be the
Chris Bishop,
the new Prime Minister, National Party leader. Yeah,
I guess I'll sort of, maybe I should cover all of them. I'll just quickly run through what I see as the state of the different parties. Yeah. We'll start with the party that is leading government at the moment. It's the National Party. So yeah, they have Chris Luxon. I don't think it would be a very controversial thing to say, to posit that he has been rather an ineffectual leader of the National Party. He has spent the last 2 years looking like the dog with two tails who was being wagged by both of them. Yeah. Right? And that being Winnie Peters and David Seymour. He has largely acquiesced to basically everything they've asked. And this is the main government party. Hilariously, he censured one of his own ministers, his Minister of Education, for reprimanding David Seymour, who was the Associate Minister of Education, for not turning up to a meeting that she'd called him to. There's Erica Stanford. Yeah. Made her look like an absolute fool for doing something that she had every right to do as David Seymour's boss. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And he goes, I'm not going to turn up to the meeting. Yeah. And he got away with it, and she got in trouble. Now, that does not look like a strong party leader to me. That looks like someone who is kowtowing to someone who he needs in order to maintain power.
Well, he thinks he needs. Like, I think part of it is...
he thinks he needs it.
It's giving, like, an experience, right? I reckon, like, if it was Winston Peters in that position, if it was Winston Peters who just happened to be National Party leader in an alternate timeline, he would never get jerked around by Seymour in this way.
So you mean if Jim Bolger had chosen Winnie, not Richardson? Because he would have rolled Bolger within, like, 30 seconds.
Yeah, holy shit. Okay, so that's, like, Chris Luxon. So, who else should we...
So Chris Luxon... looks to be an abject failure as the leader of the National Party. How fortunate he is that the Labour Party also have an equally unpopular and relatively useless leader, Chris Hipkins. But look, I would say that the best hopes for the National Party of winning the election come in two forms. One, Chris Hipkins stays as leader of the Labour Party. Period. That's number one. Right. Number two is they get rid of Chris Luxon and they replace him with someone who is competent, who looks strong, and who can pull particularly David Seymour into line. Yeah. Right? So Richard thought that was Chris Bishop. Now, the thing with that is that he was very recently caught out at a public event making racist comments while he was drunk. Yeah. And he was called out by Stan Walker, of all people. So it's a pretty prominent person to call you out publicly. Yeah. So that's going to be something that comes up in an election campaign. The National Party strategists that are around all of the people that look like they might be looking at leadership, they're going to know about that. They're going to be wary of that. I'm not certain that if I were a National Party strategist that I'd be putting my my money behind Chris Bishop. Yeah. I certainly wouldn't be putting it behind Chris Luxon, and I'd sooner put it behind Bishop than Luxon. Yeah, but certainly wouldn't be putting it behind Chris Bishop. I would say that the strongest candidate for the National Party leader, if there is a leadership election anytime soon, has to be Erica Stanford. Yeah. Nicola Willis has no charisma. Erica doesn't have a lot of it, but she's got a bit more than Luxon or Willis, perhaps slightly less than Bishop,
Yeah.
but at least she hasn't said anything racist recently and been called out by it, right?
Yeah.
She also doesn't come across as smug like Bishop does.
Yeah, he does come across.
Because he comes across like a bully, and he probably is a bit of a bully.
One of my mates used to be a debater. He's like a little bit older than us, and he's about the same age as Chris Bishop, and they used to be on the debate circuit when they were in secondary school, and so he knew Bishop, and he said, these days Chris Bishop tries to act like, this is the way he put it, as like a man of the people, whereas back then he used to criticise people for their cufflinks, which is like, you know, what kind of pompous upper middle class...
That sounds a bit like Chris Bishop, yeah.
Yeah, tobacco lobbyist, you know, perfect
But
National
yeah,
Party.
look, if the National Party want to improve their electoral chances, and I hope none of them will ever listen to this.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah.
If you're from the National Party, you're a National Party strategist and you're listening to this, turn it off now.
Yeah.
We've got nothing for
You're
you.
not the target audience, get out of it.
Yeah, nothing to see here, mate. But look, if they want to improve the electoral chances, hope like hell that Chris Hipkins remains leader of the Labour Party.
Yeah.
Get Erica Stanford in there so she can rein David Seymour in and stop letting David Seymour run rampant, because he's just going to keep stealing votes off them if he does.
Yeah. Okay, so what about David Seymour and ACT? And then we could maybe also talk about Winston Peters and
the ACT Party. Yeah, look, I can't say that their electoral chances are looking anything but good.
Yeah.
They are looking good. One thing that may put a kibosh on that is the Regulatory Standards Bill.
Yeah.
With that said, well, it's the Regulatory Standards Act now, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah. Signed
With
into
that
law.
said, it's hard to say, because National has come out and said now that they won't rule out campaigning against it
Yeah.
at the next election campaign. So campaigning to repeal it.
Yeah.
What I would strongly suspect is that there will be a number of disaffected National Party people, if they do decide to do that, will flick over to ACT very, very quickly if they see their party being so willing to flip-flop on something that they were so overzealous to push through Parliament. And it's a fairly recent thing too. Like, it's a year to go until the election campaign. A year. Less than that, really. And this is going to be a pretty fresh issue. So if they are silly enough to campaign against or to campaign to repeal something that they passed when they're the main government party, that's going to help ACT.
Yeah.
I don't see how there's a way around that. But look, David Seymour, as much as I dislike the guy personally, he's a clever leader. He's a clever politician. His rhetoric could use some work, because he sounds like a robot. Right? He only ever talks in one tone. If he goes anywhere, they seem to have, as much as I am loath to call her competent, they seem to have a relatively competent deputy leader in Brooke Van Velden. She certainly seems to know her way around the top echelons of the party. She seems to get on with most of the people who are on the board, which David hasn't always done.
Yeah.
So that's working in her favour. She seems to be very good at getting away with ignoring consulting, things like unions and stuff like that. So she seems to be very good at talking her way out of sticky situations, which actually David seems to struggle with sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, if you look at how he handled the Atlas Network thing, he's, it's a conspiracy. It's just conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
And, bro, there's a photo of you with these people.
Let's just unpack that. So tell
So
us more about
the
that.
Atlas Network is a libertarian think tank. It is associated with a bunch of smaller think tanks around the world. The most relevant one to New Zealand would be the New Zealand Initiative. Which, if you look at their policy brief, that basically just reads like the ACT Party manifesto, because that's realistically where the ACT Party gets its policies from. But effectively, the idea behind the Atlas Network is that they are an umbrella organisation that brings together think tanks that are dedicated to what they call free market policies, civil liberties, and individual freedoms. What they mean by that, obviously, is that they are for neoliberal policy. They are for getting the state out of the economy as much as they possibly can, and for privatising social services. And that is basically what's in the ACT Party manifesto.
Yeah.
It's basically what is in the New Zealand Initiative's policy briefs, and it's basically what every other think tank that is associated with the Atlas Network also espouses. But for anyone who might be listening and doesn't know, David Seymour was called out a few times having links to the Atlas Network, which shouldn't actually be a surprise to anyone. I don't really see why it should be a big drama, because of course all of these corporate serving libertarians have networks that they're all connected to, that all talk to each other. It's not really anything more sinister than that, unless you consider, like I do, the very doctrine of neoliberalism to be sinister. Then sure, it's that, but I mean, that's all it is. And they're not any really more sinister than any other neoliberal think tank, of which there are hundreds. So I kind of see it as a non-issue. It's just that he didn't handle it well, right? Yeah. So he got hit up about it, and it's like, oh, it's conspiracy theory. Yeah. Whereas the one time that Brooke Van Velden got hit up about it, she actually addressed it and explained what the Atlas Network was. Yeah. And her explanation sounded pretty good. It was bollocks. She tried to make it out like they're non-partisan, which they're absolutely not. But she did a good job, right? So, look, I think the ACT Party's looking pretty good for the election. The only thing that might put a kibosh on that is if National aren't, in fact, stupid enough to campaign to repeal the controversial piece of legislation that they just helped pass. Yeah. Because if they do that, then ACT will steal a bunch of votes from them, which they've already done. That's how ACT prospers. And it's the same with the Greens on the other side, as they cannibalise the vote from the larger party. The vote of Labour. With the Atlas Network, I reached out to them. I tried to get funding when I was running for council. I thought I could make a deal with the devil, but it turns out my soul wasn't worth selling. Really, they were like, nah. We not interested. So I was like, oh well. I thought I could trip the devil up in the fine print and be like, well, hey, you guys say you're all about this, right? Open fucking democracy and rule of law. Sounds good, right? So how about this? And they're like, nah, get fucked. Which is fair enough, yeah. Because I'm like, who am I? Hey, at least you tried, right? Yeah, I thought it'd be funny. Like, man, I was like, for a relatively modest bribe, you know, you could totally achieve a relatively modest bribe. I probably phrased it in a more respectable way than that, maybe a little more weaselly, but yeah. Who we got left? Labour, New Zealand First, the Greens, Te Pāti Māori. Yeah. Right. Labour, I suppose. What is there to say? They have no policies. Yeah. Other than we're going to do a capital gains tax for the third time. Yeah. And the GP loans thing. Oh yeah, there's the loans for GPs. Yeah. There's free GP visits. They're promising three free GP visits a year for everyone, which is apparently supposed to be financed by the prospective capital gains tax. Oh yeah. Other than that, they don't really have a lot. Yeah. They seem to be riding off the back of this government just being wildly unpopular. Yeah. And I have some concerns, because it seems like, to me, they probably need to do a bit more than that, because at the moment, they've got a leader who is very, very... Now, regardless of what you think of the Sixth Labour government's, Jacinda Ardern's government's COVID policies and the vaccine mandates, the fact of the matter is they became deeply unpopular. Yeah. They became deeply unpopular. Now, who was the minister for COVID? He was the minister for everything, just about. Yeah, he was. He was the guy that they shuttled in there to save a ministry when the when the former minister had sent things going downhill, like Phil Twyford did with housing. Yeah. Like Adina Williams did with health. So it wasn't Adina Williams, it was David Carter, because he broke COVID rules. So Yeah, so they got him out and they got Chris Hipkins in. But the thing is that he is so closely connected to all of the most unpopular Ardern era policies. Yeah. He is connected to none of the popular ones. What are the popular ones? Well, the popular ones, I would say, well, actually, one of the popular ones was Kiwi Build until they screwed it up. Oh, yep. Which, when they're trying to do it through private companies that didn't have the manpower to actually build the houses they wanted half to measures. Do, right. I think that's sort of the Labour modus operandi, right? Yeah. Because the thing you've got to realise is they're a neoliberal party, just like the National Party, just like the ACT Party, but 20% of the votes in their conference are from unions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a broad tent, and it's like a lot of internal.
It's a broad tent. They've had union power enshrined in their constitution since the 1920s.
So that's like a real fucking like millstone around their neck, for them trying to be more third way Tony Blair.
It is. Yeah, they're trying to do the third way Tony Blair thing, and they've been trying that since Clark.
So they're paralysed in a way.
They are paralysed in a way because realistically they have to pretend to be all about the working class, and they have to pretend that they're going to implement policies that benefit the working class because that's where their base is, that is where the unions are, and obviously, like I said, when it comes to their policies, unions, like in the conference, the unions have 20% of the voting power, which is quite a significant chunk. Some of those unions are captured by the professional managerial class in Labour, by which I mean the university-educated, quite wealthy...
PBTA?
Sort of like bureaucrat types that get in and become career politicians, and they don't actually really have any sense of class consciousness. They want to be in charge of something, so they get into that to be in charge of something, and they do the same neoliberal stuff as everybody else because they don't really believe in anything, right? Yeah.
So that's pretty much Labour, or is there more to say about them? Or should we...
in terms of their electoral chances...
Yeah.
Look, between Labour and National, at this point, it's anybody's game, right? Because they've both got deeply unpopular leaders.
Yeah.
They both have either no policies or crap policies.
Yeah.
That no one's really excited about on either end. And it just happens that they're going to benefit from the idea that voting for any other party is a wasted vote, which a lot of people still have that mentality in New Zealand, even though we've had MMP for... nearly 30 years now.
It's fucked.
30 years by the time this election comes around.
Okay, so let's look at the other three, right? Greens,
Greens, New Zealand First, and Te Pāti Māori.
Yeah.
I'll go with New Zealand First.
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 Yeah.
Yep. So that's that's a tough one for me because it's a party that I used to be a member of.
Yeah.
In fact, my old man was on their board. He was one of the candidates in the 2017 election, and I've had some rather large fallings out with people in New Zealand First, including Winston.
Yeah.
So, for anyone who might be listening and doesn't know, I wrote a very nasty article for the Daily Blog about Shane Jones when he was going to be picked as a candidate, which is something they kept hush-hush for quite a while, and I got threatened with being kicked out of the party for it, so I just left instead.
Yeah.
But, look, so with all the animosity I have for New Zealand First, I feel like I can't exactly be quite unbiased here.
Yeah.
With that said, I'm going to give it a crack. And so I would say, first of all, Winnie is probably going to do pretty well this next time around when both main parties are unpopular and they have unpopular leaders and unpopular policies, or in this case, practically no policies.
Yeah.
New Zealand First tends to do quite well because they're still seen as this centrist party that sits between National and Labour.
Yeah.
That's not really the case. On some things, they're to the left of Labour.
Yeah.
And on other things, they're to the right of National.
Yeah.
In fact, on some things, they're to the left of the Greens.
Yeah.
And on others, they're to the right of ACT, which is, they're a little bit crazy, really.
Yeah.
They're sort of all over the place because they're populists, right? So, like, I've managed to sit in board meetings with New Zealand First. And one of the things that struck me about how they decide to campaign is they ask the question, what are people angry about?
Yeah, yeah.
What are people angry about?
What can we capitalise on?
Yeah, what can we capitalise on? That's it. What can we capitalise on? That's what we'll campaign on. That's what we'll capitalise on. That's why they do so well. Because they're populists. They figure out what is it that people that are likely to vote for us, that are likely to pull away from Labour or to pull away from National towards us on about. What do they care about?
Yeah.
And this time around, it was wokeness and the perceptions of Māori being given unfair advantages, which was all bullshit. But they capitalised on it pretty effectively. Realistically, as much as I hate to admit this, the same issues are still prevalent issues amongst a good portion of the voting populace.
Yeah.
We have a weak National Party and a weak Labour Party. New Zealand First are very likely to do very well out of that.
Yeah.
That's probably all I have to say about it. Other than the fact that, thank God, that when Winnie finally kicks the bucket, Shane Jones is going to go down with the electorate like a cup of cold sick, because nobody likes Shane Jones.
Yeah.
You made a tactical error making that guy your successor, Winnie.
Yeah. He's done nothing.
The Greens. Where do I start with the Greens? So many scandals in 2-3 years. First they had Golriz, shoplifting from places. Then they had Darlene Tunner and her husband abusing workers' rights, migrant workers even.
Yeah.
Then they had the fallout with Elizabeth Kitty and Chloe Swarbrick, where apparently Elizabeth Kitty called Chloe a mean name. And they were going to bounce her for it. She left before they could bounce her, but they were going to bounce her for it. For calling her a mean name in a chat. Like, come on. Sort it out. Then there's the Benjamin Doyle thing.
Oh, man, yeah.
Which...
Bussy
yeah,
galore.
so I feel like a lot of that got overblown. It all got overblown.
Yeah, it's just optics.
But that's the thing, right? Look, okay, there are bigoted people out there that are going to look at that and go, oh, he's a pedophile because he's holding his child, and there's a caption that says Bussy galore.
Yeah.
Now that caption is questionable, my bro.
Yeah.
Don't do that with a photo of your kid, man.
That's messed up.
People are going to look at that and be like, what?
Yeah.
Now, he might not have meant anything by that. I don't know. I don't know the guy.
Yeah.
He could be a predator. He could not be. I don't know nor care.
I think on the other hand, like if there was a photo of a woman, right? There's plenty of women who post themselves in sexually provocative things with their child on there, and people just say, "Oh, single mums," you know.
Yeah, I mean, I could see there being a different reaction, right?
Yeah.
If a single mum was holding a picture, holding her little girl.
Yeah.
And she put up a caption with a photo, pussy galore.
Yeah.
Now, it would probably get a reaction from some people, and maybe rightly so, because that's still a bit weird.
Pretty fucked up,
right?
Yeah.
But because it was a gay man...
Yeah.
Well, one, because it was a man, right? Because there's that whole stigma around, like, men being anywhere near children. They're like, oh, that must be a pedophile. Right?
Yeah,
you walk past a public school when kids are leaving school as like a middle-aged male.
Yeah.
You don't even have to look in the school grounds, and everyone's staring at you to make sure you don't do nothing.
Yeah.
Right? So I feel like some of that stigma hit him. There's also the fact that he's a gay man. He's very he's non-binary, I think, as well. So I'm probably misgendering him by calling him a gay man.
Yeah.
He's non-binary or whatever he is, right? Yeah. He's something that the right wing really don't like.
Yeah.
So they were going to try and find any way possible to tarnish him, and they saw that and they ran with it. That was like a Christmas present for the right.
Yeah, he made
Benjamin Doyle was a Christmas present for the right.
Yeah.
And the thing is that I can't quite fathom is that the Greens, they didn't tell him to take them down. Firstly, big mistake. They should have told him.
Yeah.
That no choice. No, you have to take that shit down because it's going to look bad for us. They advised him to, and he said no. Yeah. And then they let him be an MP anyway. Nah. That should have been your out, bruv. Next guy behind you on the list is in, because obviously you can't be a team player.
Strategically, it seems like they're not onto it when it comes to like managing.
I thought that for a long time.
Yeah.
When you get people like Julianne Gento talking about like making her big issue, we don't have enough women on top company boards. Who cares?
Yeah. Yeah, neoliberals on bicycles.
They're all rich people on company boards. Who gives a shit what the gender
She's literally
ratio is?
Neoliberal on bikes. She rides her bike everywhere.
Yeah, she is a neoliberal on a bike.
Yeah, that's them. What about Chloe? I like Chloe.
Chloe, I really haven't sussed her out.
Yeah.
I really haven't sussed her out. I don't know whether I believe her. I kind of want to.
Yeah.
But I don't have a lot of hope for the Greens, to be honest. I think there's probably one MP in the Green Party that I have a lot of time for, and that's Ricardo Menendez March. He does a lot of good work with Auckland Action Against Poverty, with the Child Poverty Action Group. He seems to be a very dedicated MP. He's a very good speaker.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he's Mexican, so a lot of people, if he became the party leader, would go, oh, well, you got someone who's not from New Zealand. which, who cares?
Yeah.
But a lot of people will, and unfortunately even some people in the Greens.
Yeah.
As for the electoral chances, I mean, they're going to cannibalise a good part of the Labour vote, right? Because Labour are weak at the moment, because they have a very unpopular leader. So I think they'll do okay.
Yeah.
Regardless of all of the scandals, if we had a strong Labour Party with good policies, or with policies that seem good to the electorate, whether they're objectively good or not is not the issue. If we had a strong Labour Party with a popular leader, the Greens would be fucked.
They'd probably be out of Parliament.
Yeah, they would be. I think they would be. And they might still win some of the electorates that they won last time. Maybe. Because I mean, Wellington, right? I don't think I'd like Chloe's chances of winning Central Auckland again.
Yeah.
That seemed to be a bit of a fluke. But there are a couple of those Wellington electorates that are a little bit friendlier to the Greens. So maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
But outside of winning seats, then I think you'd possibly be right. They'd probably be kicked out of Parliament if we had a strong Labour Party, because they've been very severely damaged over the last year.
Yeah.
And it would be a lot worse if we had if the leftist sort of contingent of the New Zealand electorate thought they had somewhere else to go.
Yeah.
But it doesn't look like they do think they have somewhere else to go.
Yeah.
Which brings us to Te Pāti Māori, and that is a shit show and a half. That's another one where I'm just really not sure where to start. I mean, you've got Takuta Ferris, who comes out criticising Labour for campaigning in a Māori seat with non-Māori.
Yeah.
Which, okay, I get it, Takuta.
Yeah.
It's a Māori seat. What are they doing with white people and Asians and Indians campaigning for the Labour candidate in a Māori seat?
Sure.
Okay, I see the gripe. Don't say it publicly, bro. You're a politician. What are you doing?
Yeah. And also black
Stop.
people.
And it's going to be one of those things, and it was, where the people who are already against you, the same people who were going around, and not without merit, calling Honi Harawira a racist when he was leader of the Mana movement, right?
Yeah.
Not totally without merit. He did say that he wouldn't let his daughter marry a white guy, so fair enough. But these same people are now given the opportunity to go around calling Takuta Ferris a bigot.
Yeah. It's on goal.
The worst part of that on his part was that when the party leadership told him to retract his statement and to apologise, he refused.
Yeah.
And then he doubled down. And now it looks like he's actually trying to start a coup within the party. Along with, who was the...
That's the Tiriti guy's mum, right?
Maria Minor.
Yeah, Kapakingi, is
Kapakingi,
it?
yeah. Because there was the Toitu Tiriti guy, that's Eru Kapakingi, isn't it? Yeah,
that's right, yeah.
So yeah, Maria Minor and Takuta seem to be in the midst of a coup.
Yeah.
Now, they have some complaints about John Tamahere and about Rawiri Waititi and the outsized amount of influence that they have in Te Pāti Māori.
Yeah.
Now, I'm no fan of John Tamahere. I do agree that he does seem to have an outsized amount of influence in Te Pāti Māori.
Yeah.
He got rid of, actually, my cousin from the Ikaroa Rāwhiti candidacy.
Yeah.
So my cousin is Heather Te O Skipworth. She is a long-standing Te Pāti Māori candidate for the Ikaroa Rāwhiti seat. Sorry, no, I'm wrong. It's not Ikaroa Rāwhiti. I think it was Hauraki.
Oh yeah.
I'll have to look it up. I'll look it up.
One of those.
It's one of those East Coast Māori seats, right?
Yeah.
And they put her out, and what was the Labour MP that defected to Te Pāti Māori after she got the boot from Labour?
It's not the...
Not Namanai Mahuta. The one that abused her office staff.
Yeah, I can't remember the...
Meka Whaitiri.
Yeah.
Meka Whaitiri. So they got this high-profile defection from Labour, and John Tamahere comes along and kicks Heather Te O Skipworth out of that seat, out of the candidacy, where she's been running for years, and they put in Meka Whaitiri.
Yeah, just reward the defector.
You had Debbie Ngāore Peka.
Yeah.
Protesting. This is at this point one of the co-leaders of the party.
Yeah.
Protesting the decision to get rid of Heather Te O Skipworth.
Yeah.
You've half the board of Te Pāti Māori protesting this decision.
Yeah.
Saying Meka Whaitiri is unpopular.
Yeah.
This is not going to work.
Massive division.
And it got to the election and it didn't work. Every single other Māori seat was won by Te Pāti Māori. The only seat that Labour won out of all 7 of those Māori seats was the one where they took out my cousin. and they put in Meka Whaitiri.
Yeah.
So I reckon the cousin would have won that. She reckons she would have won it.
Couldn't have been much worse.
Yeah, it really couldn't have been much worse. They got rid of a long-standing candidate with a good rep in that area, and they put in someone who was deeply unpopular within the Labour Party, who had left the Labour Party, was even more deeply unpopular in the wider electorate, let alone just the Labour Party.
Yeah.
And they decided to stand her as a candidate because she had a name. She had a bad name, John.
Yeah.
That was the tactical error, bro.
Yeah.
So, like, look, I think he does indeed have an outsized amount of influence.
Yeah.
And I see the gripes about him. I don't like him. He's made some bad tactical decisions.
Yeah.
But when you're a backbench MP and you're a new MP who is going up against the established party leadership,
Yeah.
you maybe want to do it a little bit smarter than going out and making overtly bigoted statements in the media, right?
Yeah, I feel like with Te Pāti Māori, with like Hana Raifati, whatever her name is, what's her, Maipi Clark, that she and her like exposure internationally, and all, it feels like there's this bright new generation of Māori leadership potentially, and then you've got fucking John Tamahere still hanging around, ruining it for everyone. I think that's probably all we have time for today. So good discussion. That's it for this episode of The Spectrum. Thank you for listening, and like and subscribe and all that if you feel like it. I feel so cringe saying that.
There was definitely a lot of shit that I missed out, but